For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On the evening of June 12, 1997, Dr. Felix Campbell, his wife Whitney, and their 10-year-old twins Nathan and Ian descended into the labyrinthine tunnels of the London Underground. The American family, passionate about British history, had secured unofficial access to explore abandoned World War II shelters beneath the city's streets. They never resurfaced. Despite an extensive international investigation involving both Metropolitan and Transport Police, the Campbells seem to have been swallowed by London's vast underground network. For 21 years, their relatives in Boston lived with haunting questions about their fate, while countless theories circulated about their disappearance. Then, in March 2018, Transport for London workers made a chilling discovery in a sealed tunnel section that would unravel a dark secret hidden beneath the city streets for over 2 decades. This is the complete investigation into what happened to the Campbell family. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. On a crisp autumn morning in 1997, Dr. Felix Campbell led his family through the winding streets of London toward an inconspicuous service entrance of the underground system. His wife Whitney, a meticulous librarian, clutched a leather-bound notebook while their 10-year-old twins, Nathan and Ian, bounced with excitement at the prospect of exploring what their father called London's hidden history. The Campbells had traveled from Boston to London 3 weeks earlier, their academic credentials opening doors throughout the city's historical institutions. Dr. Campbell's research into World War II civilian shelter systems had earned him respect among British historians, but his latest pursuit would prove fatal. His particular interest lay in documenting the lesser-known underground stations that had served as improvised bomb shelters during the Blitz. Earlier that morning, Whitney had carefully packed their expedition supplies: 4 flashlights, spare batteries, water bottles, and their prized research equipment. The family had secured unofficial access to the restricted tunnel network through a maintenance worker who accepted £300 to look the other way. This decision would mark the beginning of their tragic end. Security footage from the nearby active station captured the family's last known movements at 9:47 a.m. Dr. Campbell checked his watch, nodded to someone off camera, and led his family through the maintenance door. Whitney adjusted Nathan's backpack while Ian trailed behind, running his hand along the tunnel wall with childlike fascination. The heavy metal door closed behind them, sealing their fate. The first signs of trouble emerged 8 hours later when the family failed to meet their colleague, Professor Sarah Matthews, for dinner at their hotel. The Campbells were known for their punctuality, and their absence triggered immediate concern. Matthews contacted the hotel staff, who confirmed the family had left early that morning, dressed in casual clothes and carrying backpacks. By midnight, the Metropolitan Police had launched their initial search. Detective Victoria Hayes arrived at the underground station, where she found the family's rental car still parked in the nearby lot. Inside the vehicle, she discovered Dr. Campbell's detailed research notes, including hand-drawn maps of the tunnel system and historical photographs of wartime shelter operations. The following days saw an unprecedented search operation in the underground network. Teams of specialists combed through miles of dark tunnels, their calls echoing through the abandoned passages. Transport for London suspended maintenance work in the area as search and rescue units deployed sophisticated scanning equipment, hoping to detect any signs of life in the sealed sections of the system. American embassy officials arrived within 48 hours, turning a missing persons case into an international incident. The twins' school photos appeared on every major news network, their bright smiles and matching red sweaters becoming a haunting symbol of the disappearance that would perplex investigators for decades. Detective Hayes interviewed the station staff, but no one admitted to seeing anyone grant the family access to the restricted areas. Security cameras had inexplicably failed to capture footage of the maintenance worker who allegedly assisted them. The only evidence of their underground journey was a single flashlight discovered near an emergency exit, its beam still weakly penetrating the darkness. As the first week drew to a close, hope began to fade. The search had revealed nothing but a maze of empty tunnels and dead ends. Whitney's sister flew in from Chicago, making tearful appeals on British television. Dr. Campbell's university colleagues established a reward fund for information, while his research students organized their own searches of publicly accessible underground stations. The disappearance of the Campbell family marked the beginning of one of London's most perplexing modern mysteries. Their academic pursuit of historical knowledge had led them into the darkness beneath the city's streets, where they encountered something far more sinister than the wartime ghosts they sought to document. For 21 years, their fate would remain unknown, their story becoming an urban legend whispered on underground platforms, until a routine maintenance check in 2018 would finally reveal the horrifying truth behind their disappearance. Detective Victoria Hayes stood before the evidence board in her office at New Scotland Yard, studying the photographs of the Campbell family. The morning light filtered through rain-streaked windows, casting a gloomy pallor over the growing collection of documents and images that chronicled their last known movements. The investigation's first week had yielded frustratingly little. Hayes methodically interviewed every underground employee who had been on duty that autumn morning, but none could provide concrete information about the family's entry into the restricted tunnel system. The maintenance logs showed no scheduled work in that section, and the staff roster revealed no irregularities. Dr. Campbell's research materials, recovered from their rental car, painted a picture of a meticulous academic. His notes detailed every aspect of London's wartime underground shelters, including architectural drawings and contemporary accounts from survivors. The margin annotations suggested he had discovered something significant about an unmarked tunnel section, but the crucial pages that might have revealed his specific destination were missing. Whitney Garcia Campbell's library credentials had given the family access to restricted historical documents at various institutions across London. Hayes traced their movements through visitor logs and security footage, watching as they spent hours poring over old maps and engineering reports. The twins, Nathan and Ian, appeared in several recordings, their excitement visible as they helped their parents photograph documents and make notes. The breakthrough that Hayes hoped for came not from the underground staff, but from a street vendor who remembered the family. The elderly man, who sold newspapers near the station entrance, recalled seeing them speak with a maintenance worker wearing a Transport for London uniform. The worker had seemed nervous, repeatedly looking over his shoulder before leading them to the service entrance. Working with a police sketch artist, the vendor provided a description of the maintenance worker: tall, middle-aged, with a distinctive scar above his right eyebrow. The resulting composite sketch was circulated among underground staff, but no one would admit to recognizing him. Inspector Robert Morrison from the Transport Police joined the investigation, bringing decades of experience with the underground's layout and security systems. Together with Hayes, he reviewed the maintenance records stretching back months before the disappearance. They discovered several inconsistencies in the access logs for the disused tunnel sections, suggesting unauthorized entry had occurred multiple times. The American embassy increased pressure for results, and diplomatic channels hummed with activity. Hayes found herself navigating not only a complex investigation, but also the delicate politics of an international incident. The missing family's dual citizenship had attracted media attention on both sides of the Atlantic, with American newspapers questioning the adequacy of British tunnel security. As the investigation entered its second week, Hayes ordered a systematic search of all documentation relating to that section of the underground. Architectural plans revealed a network of unmapped passages, possibly dating back to the war years. These tunnels, sealed off decades ago, existed in a bureaucratic blind spot between transport for London's modern maps and the historical records. The twins' backpacks, discovered in their hotel room, contained their own childish notes about the upcoming exploration. Nathan had drawn a crude map marking what he called secret tunnels, while Ian had packed a disposable camera, hoping to photograph wartime graffiti. Their innocent enthusiasm made the silence surrounding their disappearance even more haunting. Hayes spent countless hours interviewing the family's colleagues and contacts in London's academic community. Professor Matthews provided valuable insight into Dr. Campbell's research methodology, revealing his recent excitement about discovering something he called the missing link in London's wartime history. But when pressed for details, Matthews admitted he had kept the specifics to himself, promising a groundbreaking revelation upon completion of his exploration. The investigation's most puzzling aspect was the complete absence of physical evidence beyond the single flashlight. The underground's extensive drainage system should have preserved some trace of their passage, yet forensic teams found nothing. It was as if the Campbell family had simply vanished into the darkness of London's underground labyrinth, taking their secrets with them. As weeks turned into months, the investigation into the Campbell family's disappearance gradually lost momentum. The initial flood of media attention dwindled to occasional mentions on anniversary dates, and the once crowded incident room at New Scotland Yard slowly emptied as officers were reassigned to more pressing cases. Detective Hayes maintained her vigil, starting each morning by reviewing the case files, hoping fresh eyes might spot something previously overlooked. The family's photographs remained pinned to her office wall. Felix's scholarly smile, Whitney's gentle eyes, the twins' matching grins missing their front teeth. They seemed to watch her, silently asking why she couldn't bring them home. By the spring of 1998, the American Embassy's daily inquiries had become weekly, then monthly. Whitney's sister returned to Chicago, though she continued sending letters to British newspapers, pleading for information. Dr. Campbell's university established a scholarship in his name, tacitly acknowledging they no longer expected his return. The underground's maintenance workers developed their own folklore around the disappearance. Some refused to work alone in the abandoned tunnels, claiming to hear children's laughter echoing through the darkness. Others whispered about strange figures glimpsed in their flashlight beams, though Hayes dismissed these stories as products of guilty consciences and overactive imaginations. Each promising lead dissolved under scrutiny. A retired tunnel worker came forward, claiming to have seen the family deep in the system, but his timeline proved impossible. A psychic offered detailed visions of their whereabouts, leading search teams on fruitless expeditions through the underground's maze-like passages. An anonymous letter suggested the family had staged their disappearance to escape debt collectors, but their financial records showed only modest academic salaries and careful spending. The composite sketch of the mysterious maintenance worker yielded nothing. Despite being circulated throughout London's transport network, no one would acknowledge knowing him. Those who might have recognized him remained silent, protected by an unspoken code that Hayes couldn't crack. During the annual case review in 1999, Hayes argued against reclassifying the investigation as a cold case. She pointed to the missing research notes, the unexplained security camera failure, the suspicious gaps in maintenance logs. But with no new evidence and mounting pressure to allocate resources elsewhere, the investigation was officially scaled back. The years crept by. The twins would have graduated high school, started university, begun their adult lives. Instead, their school photos remained frozen in time, their futures forever unwritten. Whitney's library card expired, unclaimed. Felix's academic papers continued to be cited in historical journals, his final research project an unfinished footnote in underground history. Transport for London implemented stricter security measures, installing new cameras and electronic access systems. The maintenance entrance, where the family was last seen, received a heavy steel door with biometric locks, though Hayes wondered if these precautions were merely closing the stable door after the horse had bolted. On the 10th anniversary of the disappearance, a documentary crew interviewed Hayes. She spoke of her frustration, her conviction that someone in London knew the truth but chose silence. The program sparked a brief revival of interest, generating a handful of tips that led nowhere. The mystery had become part of London's modern mythology, a cautionary tale about the dangers lurking beneath the city's streets. By 2017, even Hayes had begun to accept that the truth might never emerge. The case files, now digitized, gathered digital dust in police databases. The underground had changed, old tunnels sealed off, new lines opened, but somewhere in its shadowy depths, the Campbell family's story waited to be discovered. It would take another year and a routine maintenance check to finally bring their fate to light. In the early hours of March 15, 2018, Transport for London maintenance workers David Chen and Marcus Fuller descended into a long sealed section of tunnel near Holborn Station. Their task was routine, checking structural integrity following minor seismic activity from nearby construction work. Neither man expected this ordinary inspection to unravel a 21-year-old mystery. 300 meters into the disused passage, Chen's flashlight beam caught something unusual protruding from a partially collapsed wall. What he initially mistook for old electrical cables turned out to be something far more disturbing: human remains. Fuller, a 20-year veteran of underground maintenance, immediately recognized the significance of their discovery and contacted authorities. Detective Victoria Hayes, now nearing retirement, received the call at 5:47 a.m. She had carried the Campbell case with her through 2 decades of police work, and something in her gut told her this discovery would be significant. When she arrived at the scene 2 hours later, the tunnel had been transformed into a forensic laboratory, powerful lights illuminating what would become London's most important crime scene of the decade. The remains of 4 individuals were carefully unearthed from behind the collapsed wall section. A man, a woman, and 2 children lay huddled together, their positioning suggesting they had been cornered. Scattered around them lay the artifacts of their final moments: a corroded flashlight, a leather-bound notebook reduced to fragments, and the unmistakable shape of a child's backpack. Forensic anthropologist Dr. Sarah Mitchell led the recovery effort, meticulously documenting every detail. The family's clothing, though degraded, matched the descriptions from the missing persons report filed in 1997. A partial library card found in a pocket still bore the name Whitney Garcia Campbell. But the most shocking discovery lay beyond the family's remains. The collapse had revealed a hidden chamber, carefully constructed and concealed within the tunnel's original architecture. Inside, investigators found racks of weapons in various states of decay, automatic rifles, handguns, and boxes of ammunition. This wasn't just a tragic accident. It was something far more sinister. Detective Hayes stood in the chamber, her flashlight beam playing across the rusted weapons. The pieces of a 21-year-old puzzle began falling into place. The Campbell family hadn't simply gotten lost in the tunnels. They had stumbled upon something they were never meant to see. The discovery triggered an immediate expansion of the investigation. Transport Police Inspector Robert Morrison, now Chief Inspector, returned to the case he had worked on as a young officer. Together with Hayes, he began reconstructing the events that led to the family's death, armed with physical evidence that had eluded them for 2 decades. Specialist Emma Thompson from the National Crime Agency's Firearms Unit arrived to analyze the weapons cache. Her preliminary assessment suggested this had been part of a sophisticated arms trafficking operation, using London's abandoned underground tunnels as storage and distribution points. The weapon's origins spanned multiple countries, indicating an international smuggling network had operated beneath London streets. The most damning evidence came from Dr. Campbell's notebook. Though badly damaged, several pages remain illegible. His final entries described discovering suspicious activities in the tunnels and mentioned a man with a scar above his right eyebrow, matching the composite sketch from 1997 that had led nowhere at the time. As news of the discovery broke, London's media descended on Holborn Station. The Campbell family's story, long relegated to occasional unsolved mystery segments, suddenly dominated headlines again. American news networks broadcast live from outside the station, while diplomatic channels between London and Washington hummed with activity. For Detective Hayes, the discovery brought mixed emotions. The truth she had sought for so long was finally emerging, but it came too late for justice to feel complete. The family's remains told a story of terror and desperation in their final moments, trapped in the darkness with their killer. The sealed tunnel had preserved not only evidence of a crime, but also the last traces of 4 lives cut short. Nathan's backpack still contained his camera, the undeveloped film promising one final glimpse into the family's last hours. Ian's notebook held childish drawings of the tunnels, abruptly ending mid-page. Dr. Campbell's research, which had led them into danger, would now help bring their killers to justice. 21 years of silence had ended, but the real work was just beginning. Somewhere above ground, the man with the scarred eyebrow was about to discover that his deadly secret had finally emerged from the darkness. The discovery of weapons alongside the Campbell family's remains transformed a decades-old missing persons case into something far more complex. Detective Victoria Hayes found herself leading a specially assembled task force, working from a hastily established incident room near Holborn Station. Emma Thompson, the National Crime Agency's foremost expert on illegal arms trafficking, spent days cataloging the weapons cache. Her analysis revealed a sophisticated operation. The arms originated from across Eastern Europe, with serial numbers suggesting connections to conflicts in the Balkans. The weapons' positioning and storage methods indicated professional handling, not the work of amateur criminals. Hayes and Chief Inspector Morrison began a systematic review of underground employment records spanning the past 25 years. They focused particularly on maintenance staff with access to the tunnel network between 1995 and 1997. The task was daunting. Hundreds of employees had cycled through the system, many now retired or deceased. The breakthrough came through Thompson's expertise. She noticed that the weapons had been arranged using a specific storage system, one that required intimate knowledge of both arms handling and the underground's environment. Whoever did this, she explained to Hayes, understood how to protect weapons from underground moisture while maintaining easy access. This wasn't just a criminal, it was someone who knew these tunnels intimately. This insight led investigators to focus on long-term maintenance supervisors. These individuals had both the knowledge and autonomy to operate undetected in the tunnel system. Cross-referencing staff records with security logs revealed a pattern of irregular access to restricted areas, centered around the activities of one supervisor, Trevor Williams. Williams had worked for Transport for London since 1980, rising through the ranks to become a senior maintenance supervisor. His personnel file showed an exemplary record, but closer scrutiny revealed carefully concealed irregularities. He had authorized numerous off-schedule maintenance checks in restricted areas, often working alone during night shifts. Most significantly, Williams matched the composite sketch from 1997, including the distinctive scar above his right eyebrow. Former colleagues, now retired and less fearful of consequences, began to speak. They described Williams as a meticulous worker who kept to himself, who always volunteered for solitary assignments in the deeper tunnels. Hayes ordered surveillance on Williams, now living quietly in a suburban London neighborhood. At 67, he had retired from the underground 5 years earlier, but his modest pension couldn't explain his comfortable lifestyle. Financial investigators uncovered a web of offshore accounts and suspicious transactions spanning decades. The task force expanded its investigation to include other underground locations where William S. had worked. Similar weapons storage areas were discovered, though long since emptied. The scope of the operation became clear. London's abandoned tunnels had served as a vast arsenal, hiding weapons in plain sight beneath millions of commuters. As evidence mounted, Hayes couldn't shake the image of the Campbell family's final moments. Dr. Campbell's partially preserved notes suggested they had encountered Williams during their research. Their academic curiosity, their innocent exploration of historical tunnels, had inadvertently exposed a criminal enterprise that had operated undetected for decades. The investigation team worked methodically, building an airtight case. They knew Williams was their key to understanding not just the Campbell family's fate, but also a criminal network that had exploited London's underground geography for years. Every document was scrutinized, every witness statement cross-referenced, as they prepared to confront the man who had kept his deadly secret buried for 21 years. The truth had finally emerged from the darkness beneath London streets, but the full extent of Williams' operation was yet to be revealed. The Campbell family's tragic end had exposed something far larger than anyone had imagined, a sophisticated criminal enterprise hidden in the very foundations of the city. The breakthrough in the Campbell family case came not through modern forensics or surveillance technology, but through the carefully preserved words of the dead. Among Dr. Campbell's recovered possessions, forensic document specialists discovered a waterproof research journal, its pages remarkably intact despite decades underground. The historian's precise handwriting detailed not just architectural observations, but something far more sinister. On the morning of their disappearance, Dr. Campbell had documented discovering irregular storage structures in the tunnels, noting their incongruity with wartime shelter designs. His sketches showed modern metal racks and what he described as military-grade storage containers. Most crucially, he had recorded an encounter with a maintenance supervisor, describing the man's scarred eyebrow and unusually detailed knowledge of restricted tunnel sections. Detective Hayes read the journal entries with growing tension, recognizing the description that matched their prime suspect. Campbell had unwittingly documented his family's final hours, his academic thoroughness providing evidence that would prove vital 2 decades later. His last entry, written in increasingly urgent strokes, mentioned hearing mechanical sounds and multiple voices from deeper in the tunnels. When confronted with the journal evidence, Trevor Williams' carefully constructed facade began to crack. During his initial interview, he maintained the calm demeanor of a retired civil servant, but his composure faltered when Hayes read Campbell's precise description of the weapons storage system. The historian's detailed notes had captured technical specifications that only someone intimately familiar with the operation would recognize. Williams' confession emerged slowly over 3 days of interviews. He described how the arms trafficking operation had begun in the early 1990s, using his position as maintenance supervisor to establish a network of storage sites throughout the abandoned tunnel system. The Campbell family had stumbled upon one of his primary warehouses while documenting wartime shelter modifications. The former supervisor recounted the fatal encounter with clinical detachment. He had found the family photographing the weapons cache. Dr. Campbell excitedly theorizing about military supply routes, while his wife documented the discovery in her notebook. The twins, Nathan and Ian, had been examining shell casings on the floor. Williams described making a split-second decision to protect his operation, forcing the family deeper into the tunnels at gunpoint. Emma Thompson's weapons expertise proved crucial in verifying Williams' account. The storage methods he described matched the evidence perfectly, revealing a sophisticated operation that had moved millions of pounds worth of illegal arms through London's underground network. The trafficking ring had exploited the city's subterranean architecture, using abandoned World War II shelters as staging points for weapons distribution across Europe. The investigation expanded rapidly as Williams revealed the full scope of his operati. He named contacts in Eastern Europe, corrupt officials, and a network of buyers spanning multiple countries. The arms trafficking operation had continued long after the Campbell family's murder, their bodies sealed behind a false wall while weapons moved through the tunnels mere feet away. Detective Hayes watched as Williams mapped out the network on incident room whiteboards, his matter-of-fact descriptions a chilling contrast to the human tragedy he had caused. The breakthrough had revealed not just a murder, but a vast criminal enterprise hidden beneath London streets. The Campbell family's quest for historical knowledge had inadvertently exposed a modern-day arsenal, their deaths ensuring 2 decades of silence. As Williams detailed the extent of his crimes, Hayes thought of the 4 bodies lying in the forensics lab. A family's academic pursuit had uncovered something far darker than wartime history, their final moments preserved in a historian's careful notes. Dr. Campbell's dedication to documentation had reached beyond death, his precise observations finally bringing truth to light and justice to those who had waited so long. The conviction of Trevor Williams sent shockwaves through London's law enforcement community. On a rain-soaked morning in December 2018, the former maintenance supervisor stood impassively in the Old Bailey as Justice Margaret Thorne delivered his sentence. Life imprisonment with a minimum term of 30 years. At 67, Williams understood he would likely die behind bars. The trial had gripped both British and American media for weeks. The prosecution presented Dr. Campbell's recovered journal as their centerpiece evidence, the dead historian's meticulous notes reaching across 2 decades to condemn his family's killer. Whitney's sister attended every day, finally hearing the truth she had sought for 21 years. The investigation's ripple effects extended far beyond the courtroom. Transport for London underwent a complete security overhaul, installing advanced monitoring systems throughout the underground's abandoned sections. Every maintenance worker's access credentials were reviewed, and new protocols required teams of at least 3 people for any work in disused tunnels. The weapons trafficking network Williams had operated crumbled rapidly. Police forces across Europe, armed with his detailed confession, conducted synchronized raids that recovered thousands of illegal weapons. The operation revealed corruption at multiple levels, leading to the arrests of several high-ranking officials who had facilitated the arms trade. In Boston, the University of Massachusetts established the Campbell Family Memorial Fellowship for Historical Research Safety. The program funded innovations in secure archaeological exploration, ensuring future researchers would have proper protection and oversight. Dr. Campbell's final research papers, recovered from the scene, were posthumously published, his tragic end adding poignant weight to his academic contributions. The twins' former elementary school created a scholarship in their memory. Each year, 2 students received funding for historical research projects, keeping alive Nathan and Ian's enthusiasm for exploring the past. Their classmates, now adults with children of their own, attended the scholarship's first award ceremony, sharing memories of 2 bright boys who never returned from their London adventure. Detective Victoria Hayes retired shortly after Williams' sentencing, her last case finally resolved. At her retirement ceremony, she received letters from law enforcement agencies worldwide, acknowledging how the Campbell investigation had exposed vulnerabilities in transportation infrastructure security. Her methodical pursuit of truth across 2 decades had changed how cities protected their underground spaces. The sealed tunnel section where the family died became a restricted historical site. Transport for London installed a small bronze plaque nearby, commemorating 4 lives lost to criminal greed. Underground workers still spoke in hushed tones about the tunnel, but now their stories carried warnings about vigilance rather than ghost tales. Whitney's library card, preserved in the evidence files, found a permanent home in the British Library's exhibition on historical research ethics. Beside it, visitors could read about her work cataloging London's wartime documents, her professional dedication matching her husband's scholarly passion. Their final research project, though incomplete, had ultimately exposed a deadly criminal enterprise. The case transformed how historical research in sensitive locations was conducted. Universities worldwide implemented strict protocols for urban exploration, requiring detailed safety plans and real-time monitoring of researchers in potentially dangerous sites. The Campbell family's tragedy had created a lasting legacy of protection for future academics. Trevor Williams' weapons cache locations were systematically sealed, their contents documented and destroyed. Each site represented a piece of London's hidden criminal history, now exposed to light after decades in darkness. The Underground's wartime shelters returned to their role as historical monuments rather than criminal storage spaces. On the first anniversary of Williams' conviction, Detective Hayes visited the Campbell family's final resting place in Boston. She placed 4 roses on their shared grave, one for each life cut short in London's tunnels. Their search for historical truth had ultimately revealed a different kind of history, one of criminal enterprise hidden beneath a great city's streets. Their story became both a warning and a catalyst for change, ensuring that no other family would disappear into the darkness beneath London.